Okay, so here's the next piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Greg Penner talking about what he's looking for in his next head coach. So let's listen carefully to what he had to say.
I've worked with a lot of great CEOs, and it starts with really strong leadership. I think that's going to be the most critical factor here in a head coach. Obviously, the X and O's are important, but we need a strong leader for this organization that's focused on winning. That starts with culture. It's instilling a sense of accountability, discipline, and we need an identity on offense. But at the starting point, it's got to be about culture and leadership, and those characteristics are what we'll be focused on the most.
First thing he said, I've worked with a lot of great CEOs. He wants a CEO for the football operation.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Right.
Plain sight.
Right.
Now, he's the CEO of the team, but the football operation is a separate part of it. He wants a CEO for the football operation. Further proof that George Payton takes a back seat.
That
to me is the number one thing. CEO of the football operation who's also the head coach.
Yes. Agreed with you, Mike. That was the big comment there that I noticed as well. And he said that's what they're looking for, which also would make me think that young first-time head coaches are not going to be favored in this conversation. They're not going to go the Nathaniel Hackett.
Not after what they just went through.
Exactly. They're not going to do that again. So that's where you start to dive into, wait, who's out there that's been here, done that? And right off the bat, of course, we go to Sean Payton, and of course, he's a quarterback whisperer. So you think about that when you call culture, CEO, knows what it takes to win. That's a guy you think of. And honestly, after that, there's not a lot of like proven commodities that feels like. I start to go to Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, CEO type. I start to think of guys like that. It seems like most of the hot candidates we're talking about this year are, going to be first-time candidates. Maybe a Leslie Frazier gets involved in there who deserves to be. But for the most part, it's young, offense or defensive coordinator that I think we're hearing about more than anything.
The reality is, when you take someone who's never been a head coach before, who's been successful at the lower levels of the sport, coordinator, position coach, whatever, and you thrust them into that role of head coach, you just don't know what they're going to do until they are in that job. They don't know what they're going to do until they're in that job. It's a different experience. It's a different existence. It's different. And they don't want to get burned by that again. We see this dynamic a lot in coaching searches where the team looks for someone who is basically the exact opposite of the last guy.
Yeah, right.
Look at what happened in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what they do.
Yeah.
What we just had didn't work, so we want somebody who is the 180-degree, diametrically opposed, young, up-and-coming assistant who stumbles into a coaching job, deserves it, earns it, has all the reason out there to believe he's going to be successful, and he falls flat on his face. We want the opposite. And you mentioned Harbaugh. Hey, how about this? Condoleezza Rice, member of ownership group. She was at Stanford, part of the search committee that hired.
Look at that. Accidental scholar right there.
So,
I just tripped into that one.
So tell your dad I said hi. We get to interview Jim Harbaugh in a few weeks. Won't that be fun at the scouting combine? But we know Harbaugh wants back in.
Right.
We know he wants back in. He can say, and people said,
right.
He said he's staying. He
Yeah,
said
right.
he's staying in
For
college.
the 71st
Listen
time.
to what, all you got to do is look at his contract. All you got to do is look at his contract. He's got a buyout, $3 million this year. That's pocket change to Greg Penner if he wants Jim Harbaugh.
Exactly.
Pocket change. Don't put any buyout in there at all if the door is truly shut on the NFL. When he says the ultimate thing is to win a Super Bowl, but we'll go ahead and pursue a college championship too. I guess that's okay if we can't get a Super Bowl trophy. He wants back in. He wants that thing his brother has. I mean, this is deep-seated brother
love and
sibling
hatred
rivalry stuff.
Right.
John's always got that ring.
Yeah.
And Jim ain't got a ring. Jim wants a ring, and maybe two. Maybe two. Once I get one, maybe I'll get a second one, and I'll have more than John. So I think he's probably very interested in that job. And he's coached against Russell Wilson. Who better to be able, even though it was a limited period of time, 2012, 2013, 2014, who better to maybe tell you where Russell Wilson is than a guy who was dealing with him twice 2/3 times a year when he was, at the height of his abilities.
Sure.
Super Bowl in 2013, Super Bowl in 2014. The 49ers beat them
in 2012. Right.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they got together in 2013 they got together, and that was the whole Richard Sherman, Michael Crabtree, remember all that?
You mad at me, bro, or
it
whatever
was one of those years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, all that. That was Tom Brady.
Right.
My point is this.
Right.
Jim Harbaugh is uniquely situated to remember what Russell Wilson did well and to help them diagnose whether or not there's a way to get back to that. So I think you're onto something with Jim Harbaugh. Because I don't think Sean Payton wants that job.
Right. Yeah, well,
I think Jim Harbaugh would take that job.
Well, and Mike, to just something we kind of, again, I think we're down a list here of proven commodities. I think that's what we're talking about with Denver, and I think we both kind of feel a gut instinct that that's where this is going to go, especially with Greg Penner's comments there. Unless they're going to trade for a coach that's out there right now in the NFL, like make a move like the Bucs did for John Gruden. Yeah, I mean, it's Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh. And Jim Harbaugh, too, Mike, to the conversation we were having earlier, I think you said all the right things about knowing Russell Wilson, but also maybe delivers a style of football that fits Russ Wilson. It's not going to be high-flying. Like, he's not going to get to be able to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. It's not going to happen. Nor do I think anybody right now is going to have the confidence to go, oh, Russell Wilson can do that. We'll just give him the offense, and he'll carry the squad. I don't know why you would think that's, a capability after what we've seen from this year in Denver. But, Harbaugh, we know the kind of style he's going to play. Defense, run the ball, control the clock. Hey, Russ, make a play on third down. We'll run the ball again. We'll play defense. Oh, hey, Russ, it's the fourth quarter. We're down by 3 with 4 minutes left. Can you be clutch Russ now and kind of drive us down for the game, and we'll, score and we play defense and we win? I mean, that's how Russell Wilson started his career, to your point, and what we're talking about here. That's what made him who he is. And maybe that's a formula that will work for Russell Wilson. As we go on here. And so that's why I threw that out, and it'd be interesting to see which way they go here in this one.
But that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a CEO of the football operation, and Jim Harbaugh was successful immediately. Like him or don't like him, and say what you will about him.
Don't like him. I don't like him.
Successful right out of the gates.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Right.
That's fine. But you know what?
I respect
him, though. A lot of
though.
people aren't going to like someone who has exactly what the Broncos are looking for.
Yeah.
You're looking for somebody who's got a healthy dose of jerk, right? You want a guy that's going to say what needs to be said and not worry about the consequences. You want a guy who's a little eccentric. You want a guy who's a little kooky. You want a guy who's wired a little too tight, who can come in and take this bull by the horns and maybe say the hard truths to Russell Wilson, although it could just be cliche fest with Jim Harbaugh rattling off his and Russell Wilson rattling off his and really no conversation happening between the two guys. But still, you want
funny.
Someone who is an old-school, hard-charging, take over the operation football coach. Doesn't need to hire a coach to coach the coach. I mean, that was the moment that I knew this wasn't going to last more than a year for Nathaniel Hackett. When they had to bring in Jerry Rosberg to help Nathaniel Hackett do his job, the Walmart crowd isn't going to go for this. They'll allow it to happen, but that's the kind of thing you can't come back from, and I don't think there was any coming back from that. And Jim Harbaugh is not going to need to have someone tell him how to do his job. He is going to be very certain that he knows how to do the job. Thank you very much. I know what I'm doing. I don't need anyone's help. I know how to do this. That's what they're looking for. And that's the question. How many proven commodities are out there who can come in and do this?
Yeah.
Who have shown they can get it done? And, Chris, you touched on something, and this is in I got a chapter in Playmakers about this, gratuitous plug, although it's not really gratuitous. It fits.
Yeah.
Teams don't do this enough where we'll give up assets to trade for an established coach.
Yeah,
Now,
agreed.
New ownership group in Denver may not want to rock the boat. I don't think the teams like it when teams do this. I think you get frowned upon at the league meetings if you're too aggressive in this because it elevates the status of coaches. It puts them in a position where they have to pay the coaches more. The coaches look like a more important commodity. By the way, they are. But they just want to keep it. They want to keep the salaries down. That's why they do it. But that's an option too. Other coaches out there who are currently working, currently maybe thriving, you contact their team and say, what would it take by way of compensation if, in theory, we were to hire your coach? It just doesn't happen nearly as often as it should.
No, I will agree with you there. It's an angle or at least a play that I'm a little surprised that more teams don't, at least investigate those avenues as far as who's available when you're talking about changing culture and all of that. Yeah, I am surprised it doesn't happen a little bit more than not. And I don't know if there's a guy out there.
Okay, let's do this then.
But,
let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's just throw out some names.
Yeah.
And this
I know a name right away
before any of the aggregators out there are going to take this and turn it into us listing actual candidates. Let's be clear, folks. We're just spitballing on potential current NFL coaches that maybe the Broncos should think about. Give me one.
Well, the first guy I think about is like Mike Tomlin. That's the guy I think of. Again, it's an unbelievable run in Pittsburgh. We see, you talk about culture. I mean, I don't know if anybody defines the word more than that guy. Doesn't matter who gets hurt, who plays quarterback, whatever. They come out and hit and play tough, and they're going to compete. So that's a guy I look at always. And again, sometimes it seems like the Pittsburgh fan base is a little frustrated with him, which I want to be like, why? Some of the issues with the team are not directly related to him there. He'd be one guy I would think about right away.
What about John Harbaugh?
Yeah, same thing. Same type of thought.
If you're not inclined to pursue Jim.
Right.
If you think Jim is just a little too kooky for your liking, how about the brother that knows how to better control it? How about him?
Yeah, I agreed too. Same type of talk there. The big thing is when I think about these things, I just go, well, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, they'd be crazy to trade him. That's the only thing. But yeah, those are two candidates right away that I think are your CEO types. You know who the boss is when you walk in the room, and they have that great way of being able to be tough on their players and teach them, but yet the players still have a feel of like, wait, this guy cares about me and loves me too, so I'll do whatever he says. And that's where those two, I think, are have the magic touch.
And here's why there's value in making the phone call. Remember when everybody dragged the Commanders last year because they called every team to see if their quarterback was available? And people are like, oh, you called the Chiefs. Oh, you think Patrick Mahomes is available? No, this is being thorough. Why not call every team with a coach that you would be interested in? Make the phone call because you don't know what's going on in the relationship between John Harbaugh and the Ravens. Maybe they're at the point where after all these years, it's time to move on. Maybe Mike Tomlin and Art Rooney are at a point where it's time to move on. And there's nothing like the cover of getting value and then you come off as magnanimous. This guy's ready to move on with his career and we fully support him. Whereas secretly, like, thank God we were ready to get rid of that guy. And I'm not saying that's what Art Rooney believes with Mike Tomlin. I'm just saying you don't know. You don't know until you activate the process. What about calling up Bob Kraft and saying, what about Belichick? What if what if they'd love to find a way out from under Bill Belichick right now? What if they think it's stale and it's over and we don't want to fire him, we can't fire him, but boy, if somebody want to give us draft pick compensation and cash for Bill Belichick's contract, that allows us to step aside from him. Yeah. Maybe a year before we were going to do it anyway.
Exhaust all avenues.
Why not make the phone calls?
Yes.
Why not list every Super Bowl winning coach that is currently with another team and call that team and just ask, what's the harm in that? Now, again, the new ownership group may not feel comfortable yet when it comes to potentially making waves and pissing people off, but there's surely a tactful way to do it. And you may be doing somebody a favor. You may be giving them the path that they're looking for out from under a coach they'd like to move on from. And Chris, let's take it next level. There's also the possibility that one of these teams, through back channels and conversations that never happened, make it known to Greg Penner that we wouldn't be all that upset if you made a phone call.
Yeah, sure.
If you're thinking about Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, Bill Belichick, or someone else that's out there that we would think is untouchable, maybe you should make that phone call if this is a guy you're interested in.
I don't disagree with that. You exhaust all options on this one, and I don't think there's any, feelings. It's business, and call and see. There's nothing that can hurt you there. If you feel like, hey, this is a guy that I think maybe, to what you're saying, maybe the marriage is about to end. It's gone on for a long time. Maybe they're both looking for a fresh start. You don't know. That's kind of what happened with the Raiders and Al Davis and John Gruden. There was, I think, contract looming on the horizon. Gruden being a powerful personality and, probably wanting more control of the team, and Al Davis being like, no, I'm Al Davis. I'll control the team the way I want to, and they were, I think, looking for a way to get away from each other that way. So I don't think there's any wrong with exhausting those options, and we'll see. Hopefully the Penner family makes the right decisions here.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.